Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Somatic Navigation. Today, we're going to do a little intuitive movement. We're going to talk about the grief and stuckness again today. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some techniques to kind of help you process this through your body. And also, again, the intuitive movement, so moving through some stuff. And so yesterday we talked a lot about grief and where that's held and why it might be held somewhere. I had noticed that I'd had some tenderness and some pain right on my rib cage, kind of where that diaphragm meets. Also, it's kind of that area if you were to get punched in the gut and you were to like lose your breath, that kind of thing. So that's kind of there in that center. And so just kind of noticing where I felt the pain and what are the movements that might be associated with it, and the body position that I'm in when I'm feeling this this grief or sadness and that kind of thing. And then kind of thinking back, I might not have literally ever been punched here. I might not have literally ever been like had any trauma here, but it's that the trauma or this energy, whatever you want to call it, is kind of being stored there and held there. Those muscles are very tight and they don't seem to want to let go. And it could just be that the fascia is just really tight, or it could be the muscle cells themselves are very, very locked together. And but in this case, it could have been a number of things. I used to play rugby, so I could have had a lot of trauma there, or it could have just been from getting the metaphorically, or like something happened and it giving me that same like punch in the gut feeling, and that's why that I have that tenderness right here. So kind of keeping that in mind as we walk through this is like, what is the position that your body's in when you first notice something, the position that you're in when you feel like you've gotten the most out of something, the position that you're in when you release something, those kind of things. So just taking note of everything your body is doing, because your body is telling you something with everything you're doing. Your body is also very literal, so it also tells you exactly kind of the energy or the emotion, the trauma, the event, those kind of things. They all kind of fit in that category. So yesterday, like I said, we talked a little bit about grief and sadness being held in the lungs. So if you're at a point where you're actually, you're crying or something like that, you can do this point. It's the first one on your right wrist, so it's right next to your thumb. And how you do that is you hold, you want to you should be able to feel your pulse in all three fingers. And if you let off the last two and you just keep that one that's close to your wrist, and then put that next to your forehead, not next to, on your forehead, make sure that you're covering, both sides of it. And that's going to connect your mind and body, and it's going to help you release that energy a little bit easier, help it process through your body, because you're activating the meridian and that your lung line. So it's also connected to your large intestine. So some things that holds is more of the stuckness, the more of the patterns that you just don't seem to want to let go of. You seem very like, it's this way for a reason, and we're doing it this way, and it's going this way, and I'm not going to change my belief, and I'm not going to change anything about it. So this is the stuff that like you currently believe maybe about yourself that isn't exactly true, but you're holding on to this because somebody at some point in your life told you that it was true, or you inferred from, maybe you didn't get a specific job because there was just a better candidate out there for it, and you took that as, I'm terrible, I'm not good at my job, I never get the job that I want, I never get a promotion, or I never do any, it's the nevers kind of thing. So we're talking about again about that lower intestine, the bigger one, and we're talking about how it's holding this stuck kind of pattern. So I'm going to kind of feel into my body, and I'm going to notice where I feel this. And if I'm thinking, where am I really stuck right now? And I'm feeling it kind of actually in my heel. So, or close to my heel, kind of on this outside edge, behind, like, if, for anatomy geeks, right here's the my fifth tarsal, metatarsal bone, and then before you hit the calcaneus. So in between those two, in that little meaty part right there, is kind of specifically where I'm feeling it. So I'm just going to I'm going to see if I just put some more pressure on it. It's in my foot, so it's probably a foundational issue. So this is somewhere that I'm stuck foundationally. It makes me want to roll over onto my, like putting my foot kind of in a position that feels like if I were to keep going, I'd be rolling my ankle, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything that's going to actually make me do that. I'm being fairly gentle. I've still got some weight over here on this side, and I'm noticing that actually as I move through that metatarsal bone a little bit into that, so I'm kind of rolling on that outside edge of my foot, not quite making it to my fifth toe, my pinky toe. I'm just kind of rolling right up into where the toe would start. And when I do this, I'm noticing that other parts of my foot are getting really active. And again, I'm just kind of feeling into where I might be stuck, what might be going on. Again, it's a foundational issue. It's on my right side, so that means that it's probably about my about more masculine things, career, professionalism, that kind of thing, versus the female side, which is more about relationships, money, and love. So I'm just kind of feeling, I'm noticing also as I roll up a little bit now, it changed just a little bit. I'm noticing that my heel wants to come off the ground, and I want to put more pressure right here, where again those two bones meet, where your pinky toe meets your metatarsal bone right there, that the long bone that's kind of there in your foot, and just noticing how as I put more pressure and I move just slightly and into kind of going back and forth, like my foot kind of doing this a little bit, so I'm kind of weaving back and forth, putting more and less pressure depending on the where I'm at. Also maintaining balance. Again, if you have problems with balance, you might hold on to a chair or something, because you don't want to injure yourself while you're trying to help yourself. And so I'm just noticing as I shift my foot back this way, how it seems to have changed how my foot feels. Like it feels supported a little differently. So now, like, I'm just feeling back into my my feet and just noticing if there's anything that seems to be different or changed. I'm noticing that I still want to roll over onto my ankle a little bit, so it makes me feel like I didn't quite get whatever it is that I'm trying to loosen up in here. I'm going to add in this to see if this helps. Sometimes when you're stuck and you add in what you set out to do, like if I was working on anger and it showed up in my foot, I'd be on a different point. So today I'm working again on that stuckness and that feeling. And I'm just kind of feeling into anything that also seems to correlate. I'm trying to also consider what I might be processing, foundational issues. Is this from is it from way before I was born, kind of an issue? Like, is this an immigration issue from when my family moved over from Europe, that kind of thing? And is it, I'm noticing now that now I want to put more pressure kind of as I'm talking about movement and moving countries, my, like in between my big toe and my second toe, but still kind of like in this portion of my foot. So I'm noticing, I guess it would be more like right here. I'm noticing there's a lot more activity, a lot more pressure. It's not really painful, but I am noticing it. And I'm just noticing as I move, putting more pressure with my foot a little bit more like this, how that changes things. And now I'm noticing the correlation between this new point and the point that I was just on. So my original point that's back towards my heel, I'm now feeling where this correlates to closer to my big toe. And so I'm just noticing as I'm doing this what is changing. And it feels like I still need to put like some more pressure, so I'm going to move this way a little bit because I'm still putting that downward pressure kind of, and I'm rocking my foot back and forth as it feels comfortable or feels right, it feels good. And I'm noticing that the arch of my foot is starting to get a little crampy, and it feels like it's unsure. It feels like it's trying to let go, but it feels unsure if it should. I'm going to try this point again to see if maybe this will help with that stuckness. And it feels like, feels kind of like my whole foot's kind of like vibrating, shaky right now. And so I'm just noticing that as that goes through. It doesn't feel like I'm like overexerting myself or anything like that. It just feels like there's some stuff kind of moving through. And so it feels like that might be kind of done. So I'm going to go back to my baseline position, and now I'm thinking again into all of the stuff that I was thinking about earlier and what got me into that first position to begin with. And I'm noticing that spot near my heel is actually, it feels much looser. It feels like now when I'm thinking about stuckness, a stuck pattern, I am noticing that my leg doesn't really, like if I go into this position, it can do it. It's just not really something it wants to do. It feels more like that it's like just an okay position to be in, but it doesn't, whereas before it felt productive. So just kind of noticing the difference between, oh, I can do this, and this feels like a stretch and it kind of feels good, but it doesn't feel like the same productivity that it did earlier. So it feels like, again, as I'm standing here, it feels a little bit more balanced, it feels a little looser. I'm actually feeling tension more kind of in like the center of my foot. And so I'm just kind of noticing how that changed. So when you're trying to figure out all of this stuff and what like what is good, what's not good, just trust your body that you know what is good for it and what's not good for it. And you're using your intuition is all about learning how to kind of like help yourself and how to like listen to yourself. And so kind of keep that in mind as we go through some of these other things. And I think that's about it for today, and tomorrow I'll have another video for you, so I will see you then. And again, check me out on Somato Enlightenment on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and I'll check you out later.